nachos, amigos, and welcome to Record Breakers, a music podcast where a group of friends gather together to share music with each other.
How many times have you done that intro?
You know what? They called me Mumbles in high school for a reason. To share music with each other, an album at a time. It's like a little book club for music. It's a fun time had by all. Sometimes I get ahead of my own words and I stumble along. I'm PD Rave, and I've been doing this for 10 years. I think it's 12 years. You think I'd be better at this? Here with me is my team, my squad, my crew, my gang, my wonderful friends. We've got David.
Hi, everybody. I didn't get better, so I pretty much stopped. I gave up. I quit.
And all the way at the end, we have Drew.
At least you're not the Boeing whistleblower.
Yeah, at least there's
that was just found dead.
I got that going for me, which is nice.
Of an apparent suicide.
Mm-hmm.
Not to date the episode or anything, but I just did.
Did he fall out the window? Oh wait, that's Russia.
I was saying no. He was hung by a belt in a bed or something. Wasn't that Epstein?
Let's talk about music. More uplifting music. More uplifting discussion. We're talking about an album, and the provider of the album this week is David. David, what have you got for us in store this week?
I have an album that continues along with the Record Breakers podcast 2024 Shit We Find on TikTok tour.
Mm-hmm.
And this is an album from a artist that caused quite a lot of buzz. And looking at her numbers, she's doing extremely well. Her recent album seems to be gaining a lot of traction, and I'm talking about artist Mitski and her album "The Land Is Inhospitable, and So Are We."
We love a good long album title around these parts. So it's always good to when we run across one of those.
So should I bring "When the Pawn" by Fiona Apple onto the podcast?
Sure. I'd be
Only
down.
if you say it, Petey.
I'd be down. Well, when we bring it, I'll say the whole thing.
Cool.
And then we'll end the podcast. Drew,
Half
what
an hour podcast, the album title takes the first half, and we have to go real fast through all of our notes.
Drew, what were you expecting coming into this album?
That is a very almost morose, sad sort of album title. So I had no fucking idea what I was getting into because I had not heard of this artist ever before. So I was excited, but also a little scared, seeing as this might be sad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was intrigued by what the tone of the album was going to be. I didn't have concrete guesses of the sound, but I was intrigued by the tone. I'm glad we're continuing Women's Month. So we're covering another talented female singer, a femme singer. But I was intrigued of what the sound and what the mood was going to be. And yeah, it definitely seemed like it was going to be moody. just from surface level assumptions. But let's talk about what it actually is. David, how would you describe this album musically?
I would describe this album musically as morose. That is the word I will use. Morose. M-O-R-O-S-E. There are elements of indie pop. There's splashes of country. It's maybe even got a little bit of a Baroque vibe.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe sort of a neo-Baroque thing going on.
Mm-hmm.
And it all creates a very atmospheric mood that is more on the depressive side than a lot of music and a lot of pop music coming out right now.
Yeah. Drew, how would you describe this album musically?
Well, first off, when I listened to it like the first time, I was really surprised at how musically dense it felt for being so instrumentally like light. Um there is a lot with very little here, which I think is really, really cool. Um the the lyrics are obviously a strong point with this entire record. Like once you get into it, there is this forlorn like loneliness and sadness to it. Um but like there is moments of hope and moments of bringing up and levity and stuff like that, but it's almost this like those are fewer and farther between than a lot of other albums. And this is coming from the dude who grew up in emo music. There's also this like it's the whole thing is haunting in a way, from the music to the vocals, the whole bit is just very, very haunting. With artists like this, with musicians like this, there is a very, very fine line to me, where like artsiness and like introspection and like weird bending goes from this is cool to unlistenable and up its own ass. And I think that what this album kind of does is it gets all the way to that line, looks at it, and then goes, nah, fuck fuck these idiots, and keeps doing what it wants to do, which I find super, super commendable. I sometimes talk about like that needing a little bit of rawness or a little bit of realness, and sometimes artists getting too in their own head and up their own ass. I think Yoko Ono does that at times. I think I can't think of the other one. I had it in my head earlier, but I can't think of it now. Yoko Ono's the one that like comes forefront to me, where like some of her stuff is really cool, but then some of it's like, oh, you're just doing this to like be artsy or whatever. But I don't think that plays here. I think that's awesome. And it's very introspective, and reading about sort of the artist and how she views like live shows and her weird relationship with the fandom and all that, I think is really, really super goes into what this is.
Yeah, this music is definitely morose, fits a little maudlin as well. Very like calming as well. It's very atmospheric. There's like Drew said, there's a lot with very little. There's a lot of pieces that are not overstimulating the mix in there. There's those pieces of like country, there's those pieces like indie pop. I think in Wikipedia they categorize it as an orchestral pop, but yeah, like neo baroque, neo orchestral pop, choral, choral pop,
Coral!
that make it work well, and it has like a lot of really cool pieces. Like you come in with some moments of like the string sections that come in and add great moments. the horns, the pedal steel guitar that comes in and shows prominently. You gotta look. We love shouting out good pedal steel around here. Shout out to our buddy Squiggles. Shout out to Squiggles. And it all kind of like forms a nice tapestry of like the Americana country influenced indie pop and maudlin moodiness, like that just kind of like just feels right for if you're in the mood for it. But let's talk about some of the key tracks and key moments. David, what would be some of the key tracks to zero in on?
Petey, I brought this album to the podcast and I had expectations. I had hopes. But I haven't done this in a while. But as far as key tracks go, I'm going to pass.
Drew, what are your key tracks to zero in on?
But Like an Angel. I like this one. The breathy voice and the guitar works well. It builds super slow until the chorus hits. Like the chorus of voices hits. The country twang, and I Don't Like My Mind, I think was really, really good. Like not in the vocal, but in the guitar. And My Love, Mine, All Mine, it had the most plays from the album. It was a powerful song, and how it would resonate with people, I think, says a lot to why it is the most played on this album.
Yeah, My Love, Mine, All Mine is the one you're thinking of, and once you go, I would say go listen to it, and you'll go and then go back to the start of the album, and then you can like experience the rest of the album, not having to wait for why do I know this person, why do I know this voice. It's like now you'll know why you know that voice. You go listen to, okay, that's why I know this voice, then go back and experience the rest of the album, because you go with a really great intro and Bug Like an Angel, with that really great like chorus that comes in those moments that it does to kind of like punctuate. It's almost like it uses the chorus as like a hype man in a punchline rap, like, you know, like, but it's like it fits in those moments. And talk about that country influence, because it comes in the like those country sounds come in really well in Heaven, and just in kind of like the vocals and kind of some of the like the way the guitars work. And then I Don't Like My Mind comes in with like that pedal steel. It's credited on both of the tracks, but it's a little bit more prominent in I Don't Like My Mind, where coming in with the pedal steel guitar that give you that twang, that lovely twang, and it's something that really kind of shines and kind of it adds to the mood and the melancholy of the song in a really lovely way. And it also comes back way later in The Frost as well. I also liked I'm Your Man. Also, I'm Your Man was a great is an interesting song to listen to if the first time you listen to this album is on your morning walk, because when the dogs start barking, you could feel I was looking around like, where's the doggy? Where's the doggy? And just like it was coming from a different direction. I was like, oh, it's in the song. I was like,
That
okay.
would be, yeah.
It was an interesting experience, but it fit thematically really well. Just kind of have that like moment in there, and yeah, and like I said, My Love, Mine, All Mine is a captivating track for a reason, and it is a lovely little, like, you know, just love song, and yeah, that's why it works for engaging people on the TikTok, on the Click Club in Utah. Let's bring it back around the horn to talk about some conclusive thoughts. Drew, what would be your conclusion on this album as a whole?
This is such a hard one for me because I don't know if I'd suggest it to anybody.
Yeah.
But I also think it was really well done. There was really beautiful parts to it. The vocals are really, really solid. But it is hard to suggest for sort of opposite reasons than I usually feel like stuff is hard to suggest for me sometimes for people. Usually it's when like, oh, I'm not gonna suggest like weird like freeform jazz or like some like jazz fusion to your average listener, right? It's just not for them. This one I almost don't want to sometimes because like there is a sadness that like permeates and I just I don't know. It was well done and it was well thought out and like the music and the lyrics and the vocals and everything meshed really well and I think it was really beautifully and artistically done. But I don't know if I want to go back and listen to it because of that sort of feeling. And I don't know if I could suggest it to anybody else because of that sort of feeling, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where it's hard to recommend. I would say I would find it hard to recommend to somebody else. I found it nice just to kind of like get lost in the kind of like melancholy vibes of it all. But I don't mind kind of just getting lost in a very vibey just soundscape, and just kind of letting it wash over me. But it is definitely music for particular moods and particular times and places. It's hard to recommend to everybody, but it is definitely a sound that goes for a mood and is definitely made in such a way that works perfectly to be critically acclaimed. It it is it's a critic's album, I would say. In a lot of ways, but I enjoyed my experience with it. I like I said, it was a good company for a morning walk. It's also short, so I had to loop it twice for my morning walk because my walk is an hour. But it was a nice accompaniment to that. It is not gonna be apropos for for a lot of palettes, and even some of the palettes would be might need to be in a particular place for it. But it was nice and it was well made, and I can see why it's well received and well liked. So it works well. I think it's good, but like it's a mood. It's a particular mood. It's a particular mood. David, finally, what are your conclusions on this album as a whole?
Petey, you put it perfectly. This is definitely a critic's album. And I try my best to keep up with what critics are talking about because I'm a hipster. And I listened to this album about 5 different times. I listened to it at work. I listened to it at home. I listened to it on speakers. I listened to it on my headphones. And despite all of the compositional things you mentioned, and despite the lyrics, and despite my natural gravitation towards music that is on the more melancholy side of things, this just did not grab me at all. It really didn't. And I really wanted to enjoy it more than I did. I will not disparage the album as a complete package. It just simply did nothing for me at all. That's why I said on key tracks, I had to abstain, because the album came in one ear and out the other despite multiple listens. It just didn't hold me.
Yeah. And those are our thoughts on Mitski's The Land is Inhospitable, and So Are We. Now we get to the main event of the evening, the one we've all been waiting for, our haiku reviews. We sum it all up in the 575. I almost said 447.
Again, how long have we been doing this?
You know what?
36, 24, 36. We'll do the.
But only if she's 5'3". But here we get into the 575. We get down to the nitty gritty. Haiku numero uno. Drew, what is your haiku?
Me. Hauntingly pretty. From a different worldview. Sad but beautiful.
My haiku. Lovely and maudlin. Melancholy in good way. Right sound for right mood. And last but not least, David, what is your haiku?
With respect to her, I admire the vision. It did not grab me.
And those are our thoughts on The Land is Inhospitable, and So Are We by Mitski.
Turn the comments off for this one, Petey. Turn the comments off.
I'll go ahead and do that. Go ahead and check that out on our Spotify playlist. Play Record Breakers, the home game. Do your due diligence and your due diligence. We have 2 playlists. You can find it on our show notes at recordbreakers.fun. On that Spotify playlist, on those Spotify playlists, you can find next week's record, and it's going to be provided by Drew. Drew, what have you got for us?
Well, I was having trouble trying to figure out what to bring. And beautiful woman behind me asked, well, have you guys talked about Motion City soundtrack? I feel like they don't get enough love from people.
That sounds like one of those Midwest emo weird ass band names.
I do not know where they are from. Minneapolis.
Yeah, I was about to say.
They are from Minneapolis.
Okay.
So
A band from like Indianapolis naming themselves Beef Stew, something like that.
Yes.
but
A possum stew.
not gonna bring the singer's children's album. We're gonna go with their 2003 album, I Am the Movie.
So,
I Am the Movie.
so look forward to that. But that'll be then, and this is now. And you can of course find us all over the internet. Recordbreakers.fun, rebelli.net for all of our things. Rebelli TV on YouTube and on Twitch. YouTube, we got the VODs and everything all recorded and post-produced a little bit. And Rebelli TV on Twitch, you can watch us live as we record this podcast. We do our D&D show Through the Tomes. Now we're doing a campaign Through the Tomes Hand of the Eight. We're just about getting started, already in our first combat. Look forward to more of that. And also our GM mode stream where we play a heavily modded version of WWE 2K23. And then we mostly just do a millennial podcast / wrestling podcast while we play it. So look forward to all that fun discussion. Find us everywhere you find podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. I don't know which ones have been shut down. Google Podcasts? Is that what's I don't know.
I think nope. Stitcher's gone too.
Stitcher, yeah, that's a shame. Pocket Cast, maybe.
Pocket Cast, I think, is still there.
Okay. Well, either way, we have the RSS feeds easily findable on the website. Thank you for checking us out. Like, share, subscribe, do all the things. Until next time, hasta los huevos.
Oodle toot.
Bye bye. Annyeong. Fighting.
Amber in the middle of that sent me a review for a restaurant that we heard was opening up soon, and it looks fucking good.
Or a band named Southern Fried Catfish or something from Fort Wayne. I'm just gonna start making random sequiturs in Midwestern cities.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.